The great hall of the Galactic Council shimmered with light from 1,000 different stars. Banners hung from the ceiling, each one showing the symbol of a different species. Music played softly while diplomats and scholars from across the galaxy mingled and talked. Tonight was special. Tonight marked 500 years since humanity had joined the galactic community. Ambassador Chen Wei-Lin stood near the center of the celebration, a glass of pale wine in her hand. She smiled warmly at everyone who approached her, shaking hands and tentacles and claws with equal grace. Around her, aliens of every shape and size spoke kindly about her species. "The humans taught my daughter mathematics," said a tall Rethkari diplomat, his blue scales catching the light. "She loves her teacher so much. Such patient creatures. I remember when they first arrived," added an elderly Vorax commander, his 4 eyes blinking in sequence. "We thought they would be trouble. Warriors from a young world. But look at them now. Poets and healers." Chen Wei-Lin kept her smile steady. She had heard these words many times before. Humanity had worked hard to earn this reputation. 5 centuries of careful diplomacy, of choosing soft words over hard ones, of teaching and healing and building bridges between hostile species. The galaxy loved humans now. They trusted humans. They saw humans as harmless. That was exactly what humanity wanted them to see. Across the hall, a Vethrani scholar named Keth Vorin watched the celebration with tired eyes. She had not come here to celebrate. She had come because she needed to speak with the human ambassador, and this was the only place she could reach her without going through official channels. Keth Vorin was old for her species. Her gray fur had turned white around her muzzle, and her forearms moved slowly as she walked through the crowd. She had spent her entire life studying ancient civilizations, digging through ruins and translating dead languages. Most of her work was boring, cataloging pottery, decoding trade records, nothing that would interest anyone outside her small field. But 3 weeks ago, everything had changed. Her team had been working on a collection of star maps from the precursors, a civilization that had died out millions of years before any current species had achieved spaceflight. The maps were incredibly detailed, showing the positions of stars and planets with remarkable accuracy. More importantly, they contained the original names that species had called their own worlds, names from before the galactic community had standardized everything. Most of these names were exactly what you would expect. The Rethkari homeworld had been called Blue Haven, in their ancient tongue. The Vorax had named their world Strong Foundation. Simple, proud names that matched what everyone knew about these species. But Earth was different. The current name made perfect sense. Earth was a human word meaning ground or soil. Humble. Simple. Exactly the kind of name you would expect from a species known for being modest and friendly. But the precursor maps showed a different name. An older name. One that humans themselves had used in their very first transmissions to the stars. When Keth Vorin had run that name through the Universal Translation Matrix, the system had crashed. She thought it was a malfunction. She ran it again. The system crashed again. Finally, she had forced the translation manually, expecting some kind of error message. What she got instead kept her awake at night. The name translated to concepts that made no sense for the peaceful humans she knew. World of Terror, Nightmare Sphere, Death Cradle, the place that breaks all things. Different translation. Algorithms gave different results, but they all pointed to the same meaning. Earth's original name was something dark and frightening. Surely a mistake. Surely a corruption in the ancient data. But Keth Vorin was a scholar, and scholars did not assume. They verified. She made her way through the crowd until she reached Ambassador Chen Wei-Lin. The human woman turned to greet her with that warm smile humans were famous for. "Scholar Keth Vorin," Chen Wei-Lin said. "What a pleasure to see you here. I understand your work on the precursor archives has been going very well." "It has been educational," Keth Vorin replied carefully. "In fact, I was hoping to discuss something related to that work. We have found some interesting data about your homeworld." The ambassador's smile did not change, but something shifted behind her eyes. "Oh, how fascinating. What kind of data?" "Naming conventions. The original designation of your planet in pre-contact records. I was hoping to cross-reference it with your own historical archives to verify its accuracy." For a long moment, Chen Wei-Lin said nothing. The noise of the celebration continued around them, but between the two women, there was only silence. Then the ambassador spoke. her voice still pleasant but somehow different. I appreciate your dedication to accuracy, scholar. However, some of our historical records are culturally sensitive. I am afraid we cannot grant access at this time. Kethvorin stared at her. In 500 years of galactic cooperation, humans had never refused an information request. They were famous for their openness, their willingness to share, their belief that knowledge should be free. This refusal was so unexpected that Kethvorin did not know how to respond. I see, she finally said. May I ask why? Some things are best left in the past, Chen Weilin replied. I am sure you understand. She did not understand. She did not understand at all. But the ambassador had already turned away, moving to greet another group of diplomats with that same warm smile. Kethvorin left the celebration early. She could not stop thinking about the refusal. What could possibly be so sensitive about a name? What were the humans hiding? Over the following weeks, she reached out to every human scholar and historian she could find. She asked linguists about ancient Earth languages. She questioned cultural experts about pre-contact naming traditions. She even contacted human artists who studied ancient mythology. Every single one of them deflected. Some were polite about it. Some were awkward. A few seemed genuinely confused by her questions, as if they did not know what she was talking about. But the older humans, the ones with gray in their hair and lines on their faces, they all reacted the same way. A flicker of something in their eyes. A quick change of subject. A sudden need to be somewhere else. Whatever the secret was, only the older generation knew it. And they were not talking. Kethvorin was about to give up when she received an unexpected message. It came from a human named Dr. James Okonkwo, a historian who specialized in pre-contact Earth. He was very old, over 100 standard years, and according to his medical records, he was dying. The message was simple. I am tired of secrets. Come see me. Come alone. She found him in a small apartment on a human station orbiting a distant star. The room was filled with books, actual paper books, something humans still treasured despite having better technology. Dr. Okonkwo sat in a chair by a window, looking out at the stars. He did not turn when she entered. Sit down, scholar, he said. His voice was weak but steady. We have much to discuss, and I do not have much time. Kethvorin sat across from him. Why did you contact me? Because I am old and dying, and I am tired of carrying this weight. He finally turned to look at her. His eyes were clouded with age but still sharp. You found the name, did you not? The old name. Yes, but it does not make sense. The translation suggests something terrible, but humans are. Peaceful? Gentle? Kind? Dr. Okonkwo smiled, but there was no joy in it. Yes, we are all those things now. We chose to be those things, but we were not always so. He reached for a data chip on the table beside him and held it up. When humanity first developed faster than light travel, we knew we would meet other species. Our governments gathered to decide how we would present ourselves. There was a vote, the largest vote in human history. Every adult on Earth participated. What did you vote on? On who we would become. He pressed the chip into her hands. We chose to show the galaxy a version of ourselves that was easy to love. We chose a name that sounded humble and harmless. Earth, ground, soil, just simple dirt beneath your feet. His grip tightened on her hands. But that was not our world's true name. That was never what we called ourselves. What is the true name? Dr. Okonkwo leaned back in his chair and closed his eyes. Our ancestors named our world for what it was. Not for its beauty, not for its resources, not for its position in the cosmos. They named it for what it did to everything that lived there. It tested them. It broke them. It killed them by the billions. And the ones who survived, it made them into something else. Something harder. Something that could endure anything. He opened his eyes and looked at her with an expression she could not read. The true name of our world, in the oldest human tongues, means the crucible, the place of transformation through suffering, the nightmare that teaches, the world that forges monsters. He coughed weakly. We buried that name because we were ashamed of what it made us. We buried it because we wanted to be better than our nature. We buried it because we were afraid of what the galaxy would do if they knew the truth. Kethvorin felt cold. What truth? That every human who ever lived is the descendant of survivors. That our world killed everything that was not strong enough, fast enough, smart enough, or ruthless enough to keep living, that we are not peaceful by nature. He pressed a button on the data chip. We are peaceful by choice. Every single day, every single human, we choose not to be what our world made us. He placed the chip in her hands. That chip contains our true history, unedited, uncensored. Everything we have hidden for 500 years. His eyes met hers. I am giving it to you because the secret is killing us. We cannot pretend forever. And the galaxy deserves to know who they have been living with all this time. Dr. James Okonkwo died that night, quietly in his sleep. Keth Voren sat in her ship for 3 hours, staring at the data chip in her hands. Part of her wanted to destroy it, to let the secret stay buried, to preserve the peace that humanity had worked so hard to build. But she was a scholar, and scholars did not hide from the truth. She inserted the chip into her computer and began to read. By morning, she understood why humans had buried their history, and she did not know if the galaxy would ever recover from learning it. Keth Voren did not sleep that night. She sat in her ship as it drifted through the silent darkness between stars, reading the files Dr. Okonkwo had given her. Each document she opened made her feel colder. Each image she viewed made her hearts beat faster. By the time the artificial dawn began to glow through her windows, she had only gotten through a small fraction of the archive, and already she felt like she was drowning. The file she was reading now was called A Brief History of Life on Earth. It was written in simple language, clearly designed for alien readers who knew nothing about the human homeworld. The author had tried to make it sound educational, almost friendly, but the facts themselves were anything but friendly. Earth had experienced 5 major extinction events. 5 times, something had killed almost everything on the planet. Asteroids, volcanic eruptions that lasted for thousands of years, changes in the atmosphere that turned the air into poison, ice that covered the continents, heat that boiled the oceans. Each time, life had been pushed to the very edge of total destruction. Each time, something had survived and crawled back. Keth Voren thought of her own homeworld, a gentle place of warm forests and calm seas. The worst natural disaster in Vethrani history had been a flood that killed a few thousand people. They still talked about it with horror, even though it had happened 10,000 years ago. Earth experienced worse disasters every few centuries. The humans did not even mention most of them. They were too common to be worth recording. She moved on to the next file. This one was about Earth's life forms, the plants and animals that had evolved alongside humanity. The first section was about predators, and Keth Voren had to stop reading several times to calm herself. There were creatures called sharks that had been hunting in Earth's oceans for 400 million years. They had rows of teeth that constantly replaced themselves, so they could never run out. There were snakes with venom so powerful that a single bite could kill a creature 1,000 times their size. There were insects that traveled in swarms of billions, eating everything in their path until nothing remained but bare ground. There were parasites that could take control of a host's mind, forcing it to act against its own survival so the parasite could reproduce. And then there were the diseases. Keth Voren had to stop and take several deep breaths when she learned about viruses, microscopic things, barely alive at all, that could rewrite the genetic code of their hosts. The file mentioned something called the Black Death, that had killed 1/3 of all humans in a region called Europe in just a few years. 1/3. Dead. From a single disease. And the humans had kept living. They had not fled their world. They had not demanded help from the cosmos. They had simply endured, buried their dead, and continued. How? How could any species survive such a world? The next section answered that question, and the answer made Keth Voren wish she had never asked. Humans were persistence predators. She had to read the term several times before she understood what it meant. Other predators on Earth relied on speed or strength or ambush. Humans did not. Humans simply followed their prey, hour after hour, day after day, never stopping, never resting, until the animal they were hunting collapsed from exhaustion and died. They could run for distances that would kill most other species. They could keep moving long after their bodies should have failed, and they healed. She found a file about human recovery from injury, and it read like something from a nightmare. Humans could lose limbs and survive. They could suffer wounds that would kill a Vethrani 3 times over and still keep fighting. Their bones, when broken, grew back stronger than before. Their muscles, when damaged, rebuilt themselves bigger and tougher. The file used a word Kethvorin did not know: anti-fragile. It meant something that did not just resist damage, but actually improved because of it. Humans got stronger when you hurt them. She found herself looking at a list of substances that humans consumed recreationally. Alcohol, a poison that killed bacteria and fungi. Capsaicin, a chemical that plants evolved specifically to cause pain to anything that ate them. Caffeine, a neurotoxin designed to paralyze insects. Humans ate all of these things for fun. They called them spices and drinks and treats. On her homeworld, any one of these substances would be classified as a lethal compound requiring special handling. On Earth, they put them in their morning beverages. Kethvorin closed that file and opened another one, hoping to find something less disturbing. She found human history instead. The wars. She could not believe the wars. Humans had been fighting each other since before they were fully human. They had weapons designed to kill at close range and weapons designed to kill from a distance. They had weapons that used chemistry to create explosions. They had weapons that used biology to spread disease. They had weapons that split atoms themselves, releasing enough energy to turn entire cities into ash and shadow. And they had used them, all of them, on each other. The file showed her images of something called Hiroshima, a city that had existed one moment and been gone the next, replaced by fire and radiation and death. Humans had done this to other humans, and then, incredibly, impossibly, the survivors had rebuilt. They had rebuilt and forgiven and moved on, as if the death of 100,000 people in a single flash was something that could be recovered from. How? How could anything recover from that? And yet they had. They had done it over and over again, through countless wars and famines and plagues and disasters. Every time their world tried to kill them, they had refused to die. They had looked at extinction and said no, and kept going. Kethvorin understood now why humans called their world the Crucible. A crucible was a container used to melt metal, to burn away impurities, to transform raw ore into something harder and purer. Earth was not a home. It was a furnace, and humans were what came out of it. She thought about all the humans she had met over her long life, the teachers and diplomats and artists, the healers and scientists and poets. They were so gentle, so kind, so eager to help, to understand, to make peace. She had always thought this gentleness was their nature, that they had evolved on some quiet world that rewarded cooperation over conflict. Now she understood the truth. The gentleness was not their nature. It was their choice. It was a mask they wore over something much older and much darker. Every smile, every soft word, every act of kindness was a conscious decision to be something other than what their world had made them. They were not peaceful because they did not know how to fight. They were peaceful because they knew exactly what they were capable of, and it horrified them. Kethvorin thought about what this meant for the galaxy. For 500 years, humans had lived alongside other species. They had taught children, healed the sick, mediated disputes between hostile civilizations. They had done nothing but good. Their reputation was spotless, but now she knew what lay beneath that reputation. She knew that every human who had ever smiled at her was suppressing instincts forged in 4 billion years of unrelenting violence. She knew that the species famous for patience and kindness was descended from creatures that had survived everything their nightmare world could throw at them. What would happen when the galaxy learned this? What would happen when other species discovered that they had been living alongside apex predators disguised as friends? She should destroy the files. She knew she should. The truth would cause panic, fear, perhaps even war. The peace that humans had worked so hard to build would shatter in an instant. But Kethvorin was a scholar. She had spent her entire life searching for truth, believing that knowledge was always better than ignorance, that secrets only grew more dangerous the longer they were kept. And she knew something else, too. Secrets this big never stayed secret forever. Someone else would find the precursor maps. Someone else would ask questions. Someone else would uncover the truth. Better for it to come out now, controlled and explained, than to explode later in a way no one could predict. She began composing her report. 2 weeks later, it was published simultaneously on every major information network in the galaxy. Within hours, it was the only thing anyone was talking about. Within days, everything Kethvorin had feared began to come true. The Rithkari, humanity's closest allies, withdrew their ambassador and closed their borders. The economic coalition that humans had helped build began to fracture as species pulled their assets out of human-controlled systems. Schools that employed human teachers saw massive withdrawals as parents refused to let their children near the hidden predators. And through it all, humanity said nothing. Their ambassadors did not deny the reports. They did not explain or apologize or defend themselves. They simply went quiet, as if waiting for something. This silence terrified the galaxy more than any words could have. The Vorax Dominion, a species that had always resented human influence, saw an opportunity. Their commander stood before the Galactic Council and made a demand that would have been unthinkable a month earlier. "The predators have deceived us long enough," he declared, his 4 eyes blazing with righteous anger. "They must surrender all military vessels for inspection. They must reveal all weapons research. They must accept permanent oversight by a coalition of peaceful species. If they refuse, we will know that their true intentions are hostile, and we will respond accordingly." The chamber waited in tense silence for humanity's response. The human ambassador, an elderly woman named Yuki Tanaka, rose slowly from her seat. She looked around the chamber at faces that had once been friendly and now showed only fear and suspicion. "Very well," she said calmly. "It seems the time for pretending has ended." She pressed a control on her console, and a holographic display appeared above the chamber. It showed human military assets, ships and stations and weapons platforms spread across 100 star systems. "This is what we have shown you," she said. The display changed. The number of assets doubled, then doubled again, then again. The chamber gasped as they realized that what they had thought was the full extent of human military power was less than 10% of the truth. "This is what we actually have." The Vorax commander stared at the display, his confidence crumbling into fear. You have been hiding this all along?" "We have been hiding many things," Ambassador Tanaka replied. "Not to deceive you, to protect ourselves from what we might become if we stopped pretending." She looked around the chamber one more time. "You wanted to know who we really are. Now you will learn." Behind her, the doors to the chamber opened, and 3 more humans entered. They did not wear diplomatic robes. They wore something else, something that made the assembled aliens draw back in instinctive fear. They wore the uniforms of the old Earth military, the ones from the days before humanity had chosen peace. And for the first time in 500 years, the galaxy saw what humans looked like when they stopped smiling. The 3 humans who entered the council chamber moved differently from any human the assembled diplomats had ever seen. There was no warmth in their eyes, no gentle curve to their mouths, no soft courtesy in their posture. They walked like hunters entering a clearing where prey was gathered. The one in front was a woman with silver hair cut short and a face carved from stone. Her name was General Sarah Cross, and she had not worn her uniform in 200 years. She had hoped she would never have to wear it again. But humanity had made a decision, and she would carry it out, as she had carried out every other duty in her long life. She stopped beside Ambassador Tanaka and surveyed the chamber. Her eyes moved from face to face, assessing, calculating. Several diplomats looked away when her gaze touched them. Even the Vorax commander, who had spoken so boldly moments before, seemed to shrink in his seat. "Let me tell you a story," General Cross said. Her voice was quiet, but it carried to every corner of the chamber. "When I was a child, my grandmother told me about the world before we came to the stars. She told me about wars that killed millions, about weapons that could burn cities in a heartbeat, about the time humanity stood at the edge of total destruction and chose, somehow, to step back." She pressed a control, and the holographic display changed. It showed Earth, beautiful and blue, floating in the darkness. Our ancestors looked at themselves and felt shame. They saw what they had done to each other, what they were capable of doing, and they were horrified. When they discovered that the universe was full of other intelligent species, they made a choice. They decided that humanity would never again be the monster it had been. They buried our history, softened our language, taught our children to be gentle. She paused. "For 500 years, we kept that promise." The Vorax commander found his voice. "You lied to us. You deceived the entire galaxy. We showed you who we wanted to be," General Cross replied. "Is that really a lie? When someone who has done terrible things tries to become better, Do you demand that they wear their sins forever? Or do you allow them the dignity of growth? She gestured, and the display changed again. This time it showed human history, but not the gentle version that humans had shared with the galaxy. It showed the real history, the wars, the genocides, the nuclear tests that turned islands into glass, the biological weapons designed to kill everything with certain genetic markers, the endless, terrible creativity of human violence. This is what we were, General Cross said. This is what we chose to stop being. Every human you have ever met made that choice, every single day. To smile instead of snarl, to help instead of hurt, to build instead of destroy. Her eyes hardened. You think our kindness was weakness. You think our gentleness was fear. You understand nothing. The Rethkari ambassador, an elderly diplomat who had worked with humans for decades, spoke up. Then help us understand. If you have all this military power, why have you never used it? Why pretend to be weak? General Cross looked at him, and for a moment something almost like warmth flickered in her eyes. Because power is easy. Anyone can destroy. But to have the ability to crush your enemies and choose not to have weapons that could end civilizations and keep them silent, that is strength. That is what we have been trying to teach the galaxy for 5 centuries. She turned back to the Vorax commander. You demanded that we surrender our ships, reveal our weapons, accept your oversight. Let me show you what you were demanding power over. The display changed one more time. It showed a single human warship, sleek and dark and covered in systems that no one in the chamber recognized. This is the HSS Remembrance, General Cross said. It is one of our older vessels, built 300 years ago. It is equipped with weapons we have never shown anyone. Its hull is designed to absorb and redirect energy in ways your scientists do not understand. Its crew has trained for scenarios that we hoped would never come. She looked directly at the Vorax commander. One ship like this could destroy your entire fleet. We have 600 of them, and that is just the ships we built before we decided to stop building weapons. The chamber was completely silent. Even the air seemed to have stopped moving. But we did not come here to threaten you, General Cross continued. We came here to explain. You have learned what humanity was. Now you need to understand what humanity chose to become. Ambassador Tanaka stepped forward, her voice gentle compared to the general's steel. When we first came to the stars, we met species who feared us. They saw our history and ran, but some of them stayed. They watched us. They tested us. And over time, they saw that our choice was real. We helped them without asking for anything in return. We taught them what we knew. We protected them from dangers they could not face alone. She gestured at the chamber. Look around this room. Half the species here would not exist without human intervention. We stopped plagues that would have wiped you out. We mediated conflicts that would have destroyed you. We shared technology that lifted you from poverty to prosperity. Her eyes swept across the assembled diplomats. Did we do this to control you? To deceive you? Or did we do it because we were trying to prove, to ourselves as much as to anyone else, that we could be more than what our world made us? The Rethkari ambassador stood slowly. I have known humans all my life. I have trusted them with my children, my secrets, my world. When I read Scholar Kethvoran's report, I was afraid. I thought everything I knew was a lie. He paused, his scales shifting colors as he considered his words. But now I see something different. I see a species that carries a terrible weight, a knowledge of their own capacity for destruction, and chooses every day to set it down. He turned to the Vorax commander. What you call deception, I call hope. What you call hidden danger, I call redemption. The humans did not lie to us. They showed us who they wanted to be. And then they became that thing, through sheer force of will. The Vorax commander's face twisted. Pretty words, but they change nothing. They are still predators. They still have weapons that could destroy us all. How can we trust them now? The same way you have always trusted them, Ambassador Tanaka replied. By watching what we do, not what we could do. She pressed another control, and the display showed something new. It was a star map, showing human ships spread across the galaxy. But these were not warships. They were hospital ships, rescue vessels, diplomatic transports, science stations. This is what humanity has been doing for 500 years, she said. Building, healing, teaching, protecting. We have the power to conquer the galaxy. We chose to serve it instead. She looked at the Vorax commander with something that might have been pity. You cannot understand this because your species measures strength by dominance. But true strength is not the ability to destroy. True strength is the ability to destroy, and the choice not to. For a long moment, no one spoke. The weight of 5 centuries of hidden history hung over the chamber like a storm cloud. Then the Vorax commander did something unexpected. He laughed. It was not a kind laugh. It was harsh and bitter and full of contempt. Enough of this performance, he said. You speak of choice and restraint and hope, but I see only one thing. A predator species that has been hiding its claws while it positioned itself at the center of galactic civilization. You have infiltrated every institution, gained every trust, placed yourselves in every position of influence. His 4 eyes blazed. You are not peaceful. You are patient, and I will not wait for you to show your true nature. He activated his personal communicator. Commander Vextoth to Fleet Command. Execute Operation Cleansing. All ships engage human targets immediately. General Cross did not seem surprised. She simply nodded, as if she had expected this. The Vorax positioned their fleet near one of our colonies while we were talking, she said calmly. They plan to attack regardless of what we said here. This was never a negotiation. It was a distraction. The display changed to show the Vorax fleet. Hundreds of warships, closing on a small human colony world called New Geneva. The colony had no military presence. It was home to teachers, artists, scientists, families, children. They will reach weapons range in 4 minutes, General Cross said. She looked at the Vorax commander. You wanted to see what humans are capable of. You wanted to face the monster you think we are hiding. Her voice dropped to something that was almost a whisper. Be careful what you wish for. She turned to leave the chamber. Ambassador Tanaka hurried after her. Sarah, wait. What are you going to do? General Cross paused at the door. When she spoke, her voice was heavy with something that might have been grief. What we always do when we have no other choice. What our ancestors did when the world tried to kill them. What we have spent 500 years trying to forget. She looked back at the chamber, at the assembled diplomats who watched with fear and fascination. We are going to survive. And then, when it is over, we are going to choose to be kind again. Because that is what humans do. We endure the nightmare, and then we choose to dream of something better. She walked out of the chamber. Behind her, the display showed the Vorax fleet opening fire on New Geneva. The first shots of a new war had been fired, and for the first time in 500 years, humanity prepared to show the galaxy what, the Crucible, had truly forged. The colony of New Geneva burned. Vorax plasma fire rained down from orbit, turning buildings into ash and streets into rivers of molten glass. The colonists had no weapons, no shields, no way to fight back. They could only run, hiding in underground shelters while their world crumbled above them. In the Galactic Council chamber, the assembled diplomats watched in horrified silence. The Vorax commander stood with his arms crossed, a satisfied smile on his face. This was justice, he believed. This was what happened to predators who tried to hide among peaceful species. Then the human response began. It was not what anyone expected. The first ships to arrive were not warships. They were medical vessels, painted white with bright red symbols on their hulls. They descended through the Vorax bombardment, taking hits that should have destroyed them, their shields flashing with strange energy patterns that seemed to absorb and redirect the plasma fire. They landed in the burning colony and began evacuating survivors. The Vorax commander frowned. What are they doing? Why are they not fighting back? No one answered. They were all watching the display. More human ships arrived. Refugee transports, cargo vessels, rescue craft. They formed a line between the Vorax fleet and the colony, not attacking, just blocking. Their shields flickered under the constant bombardment, but they held. Then the first warship appeared. It was the HSS Remembrance, the same vessel General Cross had shown them. It emerged from a fold in space directly behind the Vorax fleet, alone against hundreds of enemy ships. For a moment, it simply hung there, black and silent and waiting. The Vorax commander laughed. One ship? They send one ship? Destroy it. The entire Vorax fleet turned and opened fire. Thousands of plasma bolts, missile salvos, beam weapons, everything they had focused on a single target. The space around the Remembrance turned white with explosions. When the fire stopped, the ship was still there. Its hull was scorched and pitted, but intact. Its shields had not even flickered. The Remembrance broadcast a single message to the Vorax fleet. It was audio only, a human voice speaking calmly. "Are you finished?" The Vorax commander stared at the display. Impossible. Nothing could survive that. "Fire again." "Everything we have." They fired again, and again. For 20 minutes, the Vorax fleet poured every weapon they had at the single human ship. They launched weapons designed to crack planets, to shatter moons, to burn through any defense known to galactic science. The Remembrance endured it all. When the Vorax fleet finally exhausted their ammunition, when their weapons were empty and their reactors were straining to recharge, the Remembrance broadcast again. "We wanted you to understand something," the voice said. "We could have destroyed your fleet in the first second of this engagement. We chose not to. We chose to show you what we are instead." The display in the council chamber flickered, and suddenly it was showing something different. Human ships appearing out of nowhere, surrounding every Vorax military installation in the galaxy simultaneously. Not dozens, not hundreds, thousands. They had been hidden, waiting, for centuries. 4 minutes ago, our forces began a precision operation against every military target in the Vorax Dominion. The voice continued. "Not your cities, not your civilians, not your homes, just your weapons." The Vorax commander watched in disbelief as his entire military was dismantled. Ships disabled with surgical strikes that killed no one. Weapons platforms powered down remotely. Defense stations captured by boarding parties that moved faster than any species should be able to move. In exactly 4 minutes, the Vorax Dominion went from a military power to a helpless target. "This operation was planned 300 years ago," the voice said. "We have been ready for this moment since before your grandfather was born. We knew that someday, someone would force us to show what we are. We hoped it would never happen. We prepared anyway." The Remembrance finally moved, gliding through the frozen Vorax fleet like a shark through still water. Its weapons ports opened, revealing technology that made the Vorax ships look like toys. "We could kill every one of you," the voice said. "Right now, before you could even transmit a call for help. We could burn your worlds, shatter your civilization, erase your species from the galaxy. We have done it before, to each other, many times. We know exactly how." The ship stopped directly in front of the Vorax flagship, close enough that the Vorax commander could see his own reflection in its dark hull. "But we are not going to do that." The weapons ports closed, because we made a choice. 500 years ago, we chose to be better than what our world made us. We chose kindness over cruelty, mercy over revenge, hope over fear, and we are not going to let you take that choice away from us. The Remembrance turned and began moving toward the burning colony below. "Your fleet is disabled but not destroyed. Your people are safe. Your civilization will continue. We are going to help you rebuild, because that is what we do now. That is who we chose to be." The voice paused, and when it continued, there was something heavy in it. Something tired and old and sad. "But remember this moment. Remember what we could have done, and what we chose to do instead. Remember that the species you tried to destroy responded with mercy. And ask yourself, if you had our power, would you have made the same choice?" The transmission ended. In the council chamber, no one moved. The Vorax commander stood frozen, his face a mask of shock and confusion. He had prepared for many responses. Surrender, negotiation, even fierce resistance. He had not prepared for this. Ambassador Tanaka stepped forward. She looked tired, older than she had seemed just hours ago. "Now you understand," she said quietly. "We are exactly what Scholar Keth Voran's report said we are. We are the children of a nightmare world, forged in violence, shaped by suffering, capable of destruction on scales you cannot imagine." She paused. "And we are also the species that chose, every single day, to be something else, to help instead of hurt, to build instead of destroy, to love instead of hate." She looked at the Vorax commander with something that might have been compassion. "Your fleet attacked a colony of teachers and artists, families, children. You burned their homes and killed their friends, and our response was to save your people while disabling your weapons." She shook her head slowly. You wanted to prove that we are monsters. Instead, you proved that we are not. The Rethkari ambassador stood. His scales had shifted to a deep blue, the color of shame in his species. We pulled our ambassador. We closed our borders. We acted as if 500 years of friendship meant nothing. He bowed his head. We were wrong. We were afraid, and we let our fear control us. Other diplomats began to stand, one by one. The Cathari, the Velen, the Porthax, species that had worked alongside humans for centuries, that had benefited from human generosity, that had abandoned them at the first sign of trouble. We were wrong, they said, one after another. We are sorry. We were afraid. The Vorax commander finally found his voice. This changes nothing. You are still predators. You still have weapons that could destroy us all. Yes, Ambassador Tanaka replied. We do, and we always will. But the question was never whether we have the power to harm you. The question was whether we would choose to use it. She smiled, and for the first time since the crisis began, there was warmth in her expression. Today, we answered that question. Now the choice is yours. Will you respond to our mercy with peace, or will you continue to see monsters where there are only people trying to be better than their nature? The Vorax commander had no answer. In the space above New Geneva, the rescue operations continued. Human ships carried wounded civilians to hospital vessels. Human soldiers helped Vorax prisoners out of their disabled ships and gave them food and water. Human doctors treated anyone who needed help, regardless of species. And somewhere on the surface, in a shelter beneath the burning streets, a human child held the hand of a Vorax child whose escape pod had crashed during the battle. The Vorax child was terrified, alone, separated from its family. It's okay, the human child said. My dad says we're going to help your people now. He says that's what humans do. But we attacked you, the Vorax child whispered. We burned your city. The human child shrugged. Yeah, but you were scared. People do bad things when they're scared. He smiled. My teacher says the real test isn't whether you make mistakes. It's what you do after. Above them, the fires slowly died. The Vorax fleet drifted helpless but intact. And humanity, for the first time in 500 years, stood revealed as what they truly were. Not peaceful by nature, peaceful by choice. And somehow, that was more powerful than any weapon they had ever built. 6 months passed. The galaxy did not return to what it had been. It could not. The truth was out, and truth could not be unlearned. But slowly, painfully, something new began to grow in place of the comfortable illusions that had come before. The Galactic Council met for the first time since the Vorax attack. The chamber looked different now. The banners still hung from the ceiling, but they had been rearranged. Humanity's banner, once placed modestly near the edge, now hung at the center. Not because humans had demanded it, but because the other species had insisted. Ambassador Tanaka, now called Grandmother Tanaka by almost everyone in the diplomatic corps, sat in her usual seat. She looked tired. The past 6 months had been difficult, full of hard conversations and harder choices. But she also looked peaceful in a way she had not been before the crisis. Scholar Keth Voren sat in the observer section. She had not intended to attend, but when the council had invited her, she could not refuse. She was the one who had started all of this. After all, she felt she owed it to everyone to see how it ended. The first to speak was the Rethkari ambassador. He had aged visibly since the crisis. His blue scales faded to a lighter shade. 6 months ago, I closed our borders to humanity. I acted out of fear, not wisdom. I abandoned allies who had stood beside us for 5 centuries. He paused, his voice heavy. I was wrong, and I am not the only one. One by one, other ambassadors stood and spoke. The Cathari apologized for withdrawing their students from human schools. The Velen confessed that they had nearly attacked a human research station out of panic. The Porthax admitted that their government had discussed plans to poison human food supplies. Each confession was met with silence from the human delegation. No anger, no accusations, no demands for apology, just quiet acceptance. Finally, the Vorax representative stood. It was not Commander Vextoth. He had been removed from his position after the failed attack. This was someone new, a young female named Vex Kira, who had been chosen specifically because she had argued against the attack from the beginning. The Vorax Dominion attacked a peaceful colony without warning or justification, she said. We killed civilians. We destroyed homes. We tried to start a war of extermination against a species whose only crime was being stronger than they appeared. She took a deep breath. And humanity's response was to save our soldiers, heal our wounded, and help us rebuild our disabled fleet. She turned to face Grandmother Tanaka directly. I do not understand your species. I am not sure I ever will. But I know this. If the situation had been reversed, we would not have shown mercy. We would have destroyed you completely, and we would have felt justified in doing so. She bowed her head. That you chose differently tells me that we have much to learn from you, not about weapons or technology, about what it means to be civilized. Grandmother Tanaka rose slowly from her seat. The chamber fell completely silent. When humanity first came to the stars, she said, we carried a great shame with us. We knew what we were, what our world had made us, what we had done to each other across thousands of years of history. We were terrified that the galaxy would see us as we saw ourselves, as monsters dressed in the clothing of civilization. She looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of each ambassador in turn. So we made a choice. We chose to show you our hope instead of our history. We chose to be defined by what we wanted to become, not what we had been. We thought this was the right thing to do. We thought we were protecting you from a truth that would only cause pain. She paused, and when she continued, her voice was softer. We were wrong. Not because the truth caused pain, but because we did not trust you with it. We treated you as children who could not handle difficult knowledge. We denied you the chance to know us fully, to understand our struggle, to see the daily choice that every human makes, to be gentle instead of terrible. She smiled, and it was the warmest expression anyone in the chamber had ever seen on a human face. The past 6 months have been difficult, but they have also been the most honest period in the history of galactic civilization. For the first time, you know who we really are. And for the first time, we do not have to pretend. She gestured, and the display above the chamber came to life. It showed images from across the galaxy. Human teachers returning to classrooms, welcomed by students who now understood the weight of their kindness. Human doctors treating patients who looked at them with new respect. Human diplomats meeting with leaders who no longer saw them as harmless helpers, but as equal partners. Something remarkable has happened in these 6 months, Grandmother Tanaka said. Other species have begun to share their own secrets. The Rethkari have revealed the civil war that nearly destroyed them 2,000 years ago. The Velen have admitted to the gene editing programs they use to eliminate aggression from their population. The Kithari have acknowledged the prison planets where they sent their criminals rather than reforming them. She looked around the chamber with wonder in her eyes. We thought our history made us uniquely terrible. We were wrong. Every species has darkness in its past. Every civilization has done things it is ashamed of. The difference is not in what we were, but in what we choose to be now. The display changed one final time. It showed a classroom, somewhere on a station far from any homeworld. Children of a dozen different species sat together, listening to a human teacher. Among them was a small Vorax child, sitting next to a human girl who was helping her with a difficult problem. This is what we wanted all along, Grandmother Tanaka said. Not power, not control, not dominance, just this: connection, understanding, the chance to grow together, to learn from each other, to become something greater than any of us could be alone. She returned to her seat. Humanity will continue to protect the galaxy. We will continue to teach, to heal, to build, to serve. But we will do it honestly now, as partners rather than guardians. You know what we are. You know what we are capable of. And you have chosen to stand beside us anyway. Her voice broke slightly. That means more to us than you will ever know. The session ended shortly after. As the ambassadors filed out, Keth Voren found herself walking beside Grandmother Tanaka. Do you regret it? She asked. The secret being revealed? Grandmother Tanaka considered the question. I regret the pain it caused. I regret the fear and confusion. I regret that good people died because of it. She paused. But no, I do not regret the truth itself. We spent 500 years carrying a weight that was crushing us. Now that weight is shared. We are lighter for it. They walked in silence for a moment. Can I ask you something? Kethvorin said. Of course. The name. The original name of your world. The one that started all of this. She hesitated. Do humans still use it? Among yourselves, I mean. Grandmother Tanaka smiled. Some do. The older families. The ones who remember why we chose to bury it. She looked out a window at the stars. But most young humans have never heard it. To them, home is just earth, ground, soil. A humble little world where gentle people live. Which name is the true one? Both. Grandmother Tanaka replied. That is the secret we never told you. The one we barely understood ourselves. Our world is both the crucible and the garden. The place that forged us through suffering, and the place where we learned to grow flowers in the ashes. She turned to face Kethvorin. Every human carries both names in their heart, the monster and the caretaker, the destroyer and the healer. We do not choose one over the other. We hold them both, every day, and decide which one to be. She placed a hand on Kethvorin's shoulder. That is the true gift of the crucible. Not the ability to endure, not the strength to survive, but the wisdom to know that survival means nothing if you lose yourself in the process. She smiled. Our world tried to make us into demons. We decided to become angels instead. And every single day, we make that choice again. She walked away, leaving Kethvorin alone with her thoughts. 1 year later, a new holiday was established across the Galactic Council. It was called Revelation Day, and it marked the anniversary of the day humanity's secret was revealed. On this day, species across the galaxy shared their own hidden histories, their own shameful pasts, their own buried secrets. It became a celebration of honesty, of growth, of the courage it took to show others who you really were. And on that first Revelation Day, in a classroom on a distant station, a Vethrani child asked her human teacher a question. Is it true what they say about your world? That it was a place of nightmares? The teacher smiled. She was young, born long after humanity had come to the stars, raised in a time when the secret was still being kept. Yes, she said. Our world was very dangerous. It made our ancestors strong and fierce and sometimes terrible. But you're not terrible, the child said. You're nice. We try to be, the teacher replied. Every day, we try very hard to be nice. The child considered this. Is it hard? The teacher knelt down to meet the child's eyes. Sometimes, when people are mean to us, when things go wrong, when we're scared or angry or hurt, then it's very hard. She smiled. But that's what makes it important. Anyone can be nice when it's easy. The real test is being nice when it's hard. The child nodded slowly, the way children do when they are thinking about something bigger than they can fully understand. I want to be like that, she said. Nice even when it's hard. The teacher hugged her. Then you will be. That's all it takes. The choice. Outside the classroom window, the stars burned in the endless dark. Somewhere among them was a small blue world called Earth, or ground, or soil, or the crucible, or the nightmare that teaches. A world that had forged monsters and raised angels and sent its children to the stars with a secret in their hearts. The secret was out now, and it turned out that it was not a secret about power or danger or hidden darkness. It was a secret about hope. The hope that anything, even a species born in nightmare, could choose to dream of something better. And that was the most terrifying thing of all. Not that humans were monsters, but that monsters could choose to be kind. If they could do it, so could anyone. And in that choice, in that daily decision to be gentle instead of terrible, lay the future of the galaxy itself.